Okay, toe in, toe out in a nutshell. Um, Tires are straight. How straight my hands are. Toe in means your front of your tires are pointed in more than the rear. Toe out means they're pointed more out than the rear of the tire. Um, Toe in can make your car a little more stable, particularly at high speeds, and but having toe out can help your car turn in a little bit, at least toe out in the front. So you'll see a lot of sim racers will have a little bit of toe out in the front and a little bit of toe in the rear. You get too much, I mean, you're just plowing, scrubbing your tires, so you just want tenths of an inch, something very minimal, or even a percentage. And I'm not really sure as much of a big difference it is here to have toe out or toe in on some excessive measure. I did have some cars on other games where I had the toe in the rear as much as zero point 0.3 or zero point 0.4 because I'd get into a high speed turn and it was a street car that I adjusted the suspension on and the rear end would just want to slide out. But once I put that toe in, the rear end would grab a little bit on those high speed turns. So again, toe out can be a little more unstable. Toe in makes it stable, but toe out will make it turn in better. And I'm just going to leave this up to you. I tend to adjust my toe in and toe out between 0.1 and 0.2, usually 0.2 in the rear and 0.1 out in the front, which would be a negative setting, by the way. Toe out is a negative setting. So negative 0.1 in the front and zero point 0.2 in the rear and or thereabouts. And I'm just going to leave it at that. What Caster does is it takes, for lack of a better expression, it takes your whole suspension and rotates it one way or the other. So let's say your car's like this, and I'm going to exaggerate. You raise up the rear of the car so the front's really lower. Well, now your suspension, if it's the same, it's gonna work great if you drive the car into the ground, which you're not going to do, or it's got to handle great if the rear hunkers down, say like with the rear wing, but it's not going to handle great otherwise. And so when I used to do drag racing, we'd start with cars like this because they would want to launch and take off, but then the rear would hunker down. So we would take that whole front suspension and use a caster adjustment to turn it a little bit so that at least the suspension is trying to travel down the road and not into the ground. Caster on a race car in these scenarios can help reduce what we call bump oversteer. So your tire goes and hits a bump, it pulls on the tie rods and it can pull your toe in and your toe out accordingly. And you'll notice it, you'll hit a bump and all of a sudden the car just feels like it wants to turn in a lot. Bump oversteer. So adjusting the caster one way or the other can help reduce that. And so what I would typically do is I would adjust my caster at least 1 degree um, as an offset to, or 1 point on this game to offset that bump oversteer. I haven't done it yet. It's still set at 0. Um, I'll probably just set it at 1 because that's what I do. But that's part of that caster offset in the front is that it just reduces that bump oversteer when you go over curbs and such. So I'm going to move on also from that, and then I'm going to look at Aero here. So concerning Aero, one of the best things to do is adjust your Aero for high speed corners. You got a long swooping corner, you don't have enough Aero, that car's just going to want to slide out. And if you have a very tight course, maxing out your Aero or increasing your Aero uh, front and rear is great because it just helps keep the car hunkered down. And if you have a long speed straight, if your Aero's too much, it's going to slow your car down. Everybody's going to be pulling away from you or catching up to you at that point. So again, it's going to be a matter of what serves you the best. And like anything, all these adjustments are going to feel different on different turns. So you have to determine, according to your driving and which track you're on, hey, I really need these turns to go well, and these turns I can fight the oversteer and stuff and do okay with. So again, my thought with Aero is that you adjust your Aero for a high speed turn. Turn 1 is a good example on this one. So I'm going to max the Aero out and just kind of see what it does. But remind it that when you increase the aerodynamics, it's going to put greater downforce on the front of the rear suspension. So my rear car is going to want to hunker down more. And right now I've got the ride set level, so it's probably going to make the rear of the car be lower than the front. And so in my case, it would be a good idea to at least maybe raise the rear of the car up or lower the front a little bit to compensate for that aero package. So that's what I'm going to do off the start. I haven't chosen yet. I'll just fiddle with this and try it. But I'm going to raise or lower uh, the rear or front, respectively. And I'm going to max the aero out at 5 and see if turn 1 goes a little bit better for me. All right, here we go. All right, well, I wasn't too impressed with that. I thought it would do a whole lot better on turn 1. If anything, I felt like it made it worse. So I'm going to lower the aero, and it could be the half inch that I raised the rear of the car as well. And all right, let's try that instead. I'm just going to make the car flat like it was again, keep the aero up, and then see what happens. All right, so that was a 136.6. Thinking like the downforce might be too much. I might drop it down to 3, or actually I am going to drop it down to 3 and see how it goes from there. It didn't quite help me in those turns, which means I'm probably going to need to loosen the springs a little bit, loosen the uh, anti-roll bars. I'm unsure about this at this point, but at least I'm just going to do the aero, and then we get to do the process over again. You don't have to hang out with me for that. That's okay. I just wanted to create these videos again to give you a setup starting idea on what you need to do for your setups. Anyway, here we go. All right, so now the aero's set at 3. Car is still level, which again means that rear end is probably hunkering down. I don't know if I should be concerned about it at this point. So let's get the tires warmed up and see how we do. Okay, so not thoroughly impressed with that setting. I feel like I did better with the 5-degree rear downforce and the car level at the beginning. There's nothing wrong with lowering the rear of the car more than the front. It's whatever's going to work and make this car handle the best for you. And I also have not yet touched the caster setting. I'll probably put that at a value of 1 just to help reduce any bump oversteer. I haven't felt it a lot, and so we'll play with that. The other thing is I notice on certain corners, I tend to be sliding. I'm still sliding on turn 1, and it could be that I'm just taking it too fast and I need to slow down a little bit. It could be that I need to stiffen the springs up. So think of it this way again, front or rear. If you stiffen the front up, it is going to understeer, but it's going to reduce oversteer. If you loosen the front up, it's going to increase oversteer and reduce understeer. Similar with the back, and that's kind of the process you want from here on out. And I think that I might try stiffening the springs up and loosening the anti-roll bars a little bit and see what happens there, or vice versa. And there is an exact science to it. I'm not that scientist, but I do like to have fun with these games, and I hope you've enjoyed these sets of videos on getting you started from scratch on your own tune that you can live with and race with and have a great time adjusting it from here on out. All right, so now that we've adjusted pretty much everything to some point, this time I'm going to attempt to readjust the springs, make them stiffer or looser. I'm going to do it evenly on the front and the rear just to see what the car does and see if we can get a little more time out of this. Again, might have to readjust the height. I tried that in the Aero section already where I lifted the rear up a half an inch and it just kept producing slower results for me as when I kept the car flat. This time I'm going to try to drop the front end down as I think this car can wield this track well and still be a little bit lower and not risk bottoming out. So we're going to try all these things now, and as I'm driving, I'll just tell you what I'm feeling and what I'm looking for, and I'll continue to, well, just that. Okay, so why go back and look at the springs after everything's adjusted? The springs are basically what holds your car up and what keeps your tires on the ground. And I just kind of like going over them again just to do a one over. I mean, you can go back and redo all the camber, which I have done and might consider here doing that again, and tire pressure and the anti-roll bars and such. That's just part of the whole tuning process as you try to figure out what is making this car stay on the ground and something that I can drive, even though it might challenge me a little bit, but at least I can pull it off. I'm not sure that makes any sense. Anyway, that's just kind of where that is. I'm satisfied with that build for now. I might get on a track and put some more hours into it and find later, but at least I feel like I've got a good start for something that I could use elsewhere. Yeah, just fair. Just doesn't seem to be doing it. All right, let's readjust. Okay. All right, so we're going to load back that Aero setting. And go to suspension, and I'm going to bump each of these up a notch here. I did change the caster. Maybe I should just leave that. I'll do the same ride height adjustment-ish or thereabouts. Get that down to 0.6 or so. And then to the rear. It's like 0.4. Close enough. And I'll leave the caster at 0 at this point. I'm not convinced I'm feeling so much of that bump oversteer anymore. All right, let's drive. So now it's saying I'm 9/10 ahead, or at least I was up to before that turn. It's saying I'm a second ahead of a 137.2. Let's see if this is going to make a 136.2. 136.9. Yeah, so that clock on the top is not, something's not accurate. but I do feel like this feels better. It feels fast, and I think I can get down into that 136 range with this. All right, let's move on. Okay, at this point in time, I'm gonna pause on these tuner videos because between the beginning of what I started and even up through Project Motor Racing version 2.0, there's been so many changes, and I've had to readjust and readjust and readjust some cars. And they got track fixes, which is all great. I love it. But this is as far as I'm going to go for now, and hopefully before the year's out, and we got several months before that happens, I'll likely restart from ground zero and redo this whole thing. But I'm going to leave these posted and up again, just to hopefully help you and give you an idea of what can be done with your car and what adjustments should or shouldn't be made. So as always, enjoy, and we'll try again later.